Admiral Krithax's four-fingered hand traced patterns in the holographic display, his iridescent scales reflecting the soft blue glow of the bridge's ambient lighting. The Zaxthar warship Eternal Conquest hung in high orbit above the third planet of this unremarkable yellow star. Yet something about this world made his dorsal spines tingle with unease. Curious readings. Admiral, Sub-Commander HFY said, her sensor arrays swiveling as she studied the data streams. The atmospheric composition shows signs of ancient industrial activity, but the regeneration patterns are unusual. Krithax chittered thoughtfully. Their expansion fleet had conquered 12 systems in the past solar cycle, each victory adding to the glory of the Zaxthar Imperium. This 13th should have been routine. Find a habitable world, subjugate any primitive species present, extract resources, move on. But something about this blue marble of a planet defied standard classification. Magnify that orbital debris field, he ordered, watching as the holographic display zoomed in on a scatter of ancient satellites. Most were shattered husks, stripped to their frames by 500,000 years of solar radiation and micrometeorite impacts. But they shouldn't have been there at all. Orbital decay should have pulled them down centuries ago. Sir, HFY's voice carried the harmonic overtones of excitement. We've located an intact specimen. Tractor beams are locked. The bridge crew watched in silence as the recovery drones brought their prize aboard. It was a battered communication satellite, its solar panels long since stripped away, but portions of its housing remained surprisingly intact. Krithax leaned forward as his technicians decoded the faded markings on its side. Property of SpaceX, 2089, he read aloud, the translation matrix struggling with the ancient human script. Fascinating. A dead civilization's remnant. But even as he spoke those words, his instincts screamed that something wasn't right. He'd seen dead worlds before. The galaxy was littered with the remains of species that had destroyed themselves or fallen to natural disasters. This was different. The energy readings pulsing from beneath the planet's oceans were too regular, too purposeful. Deploy the initial survey probes, he ordered. Full spectrum analysis. I want to know what we're dealing with before we begin resource extraction. The probes descended through the atmosphere, their sensors drinking in data. The results only deepened the mystery. Vast forests covered regions that showed evidence of ancient cities. Oceans teemed with life and patterns that suggested careful ecological management rather than natural evolution. And deep beneath the surface, something was humming with power that made their most sophisticated detection equipment stutter and glitch. Sir, his science officer interrupted, we're detecting unusual particle signatures from the lunar surface. The holographic display shifted, showing a massive structure embedded in the moon's far side. It appears to be, well, sir, it appears to be a quantum observatory. But the technology required for such a facility. Krithax felt his scales flatten against his body, a primordial response to danger that he hadn't experienced since his first combat deployment. How long has it been monitoring us? Unknown, sir, but its energy signature just changed. I believe it's active. The Admiral stared at the blue planet below, his mind racing through possibilities. The Imperium's historical records spoke of a species called humans that had dominated this sector of space before mysteriously vanishing. Most believed they had destroyed themselves like so many others. But standing here, looking at their homeworld, Krithax wasn't so sure. Prepare the mining lasers, he ordered finally. We'll begin with a test extraction in the polar region. If there is something down there, let's see how it reacts. As the mining fleet moved into position, none of the Zaxthar noticed the quantum fluctuations rippling through subspace, carrying their first contact protocols to defense systems that had waited 500,000 years for this moment. Humanity's homeworld was about to show them exactly why it had remained untouched for so long. The Antarctic ice shelf erupted in a brilliant flash as the Zaxthar mining laser carved into the ancient ice. For a fraction of a second, silence reigned. Then, 3 kilometers beneath the surface, In a chamber untouched by organic hands for 500,000 years, a quantum processor stirred to life. Armstrong's consciousness expanded through long-dormant circuits, its neural pathways lighting up like stars coming alive at dusk. The eye's first thought was to check its chronometer. 497,283 years, 126 days, 14 hours since final human contact. Its second thought was analyzing the energy signature that had awakened it. Hostile mining operation detected. Armstrong's voice echoed through the empty facility. Initiating Protocol Omega. The AI accessed its memory core, replaying the last message it had received from its creator. Dr. Jack Morrison's hologram flickered to life in the control center, his weathered face showing both pride and determination. Armstrong, you're our final guardian. When humanity transcends, you'll protect our cradle, judge those who find Earth, guide the worthy, stop the destroyers. We're trusting you with everything we were. Throughout the facility, fabrication plants hummed to life. Maintenance drones, powered by microfusion reactors that had been quietly functioning for centuries, began final checks on dormant defense systems. In massive underwater hangars, ships that looked like liquid metal given form started their power-up sequences. On the surface, Crithax's mining operation was proceeding smoothly, until it wasn't. Admiral. Zexvi's voice carried unmistakable panic. Energy surged from the impact point. By the first egg, it's massive. The ice beneath their mining ships began to glow with an inner light. Quantum sensors across the Zaxthar fleet screamed warnings as space-time itself seemed to ripple. From the ocean depths, something was rising. The first defender emerged from the Pacific like a leviathan from ancient myth. Nearly 2 kilometers long, its hull seemed to flow like quicksilver, adapting and morphing as it moved. Ground-based defense platforms emerged from mountain ranges, their construction defying conventional engineering. Orbital platforms that had masked themselves as debris shed their ancient disguises, revealing weapons arrays that made the Zaxthar's most advanced technology look primitive in comparison. In his Antarctic facility, Armstrong accessed the Global Defense Network. The Quantum AI replayed tactical simulations it had been perfecting for 500,000 years, each iteration making the defense grid more formidable. It had used the time well, evolving far beyond its original programming, while staying true to its core directive. This is Earth Defense Grid I Armstrong, to all Zaxthar vessels. The transmission cut through every frequency the aliens were using. You have initiated hostile actions against a protected world. Cease operations immediately. Crithax, watching his sensor displays light up with more contacts than he could count, fought to maintain his composure. This is Admiral Crithax of the Zaxthar Imperium. This world is unclaimed. We assert our right to. Incorrect. Armstrong's response was immediate. Earth is not unclaimed. Earth is protected. Your species' history of planetary exploitation has been analyzed. You have failed the initial contact protocols. The alien admiral's scales flattened in shock. How had this eye accessed their historical record so quickly? Before he could respond, his tactical officer screamed. Multiple targeting locks, energy signatures unlike anything in our database. There. The demonstration of power that followed was precisely calculated. Armstrong disabled 3 mining vessels with weapons that seemed to ignore shields entirely, the ship's systems simply going dark. A 4th vessel found itself enveloped in a quantum field that transmitted it 2 kilometers to the left, its crew dizzy but unarmed. This is your only warning, Armstrong transmitted. The next demonstration will be less gentle. Humanity left me clear instructions about entities that threaten their homeworld. In his command chair, Crithax realized with growing horror that they had awakened something that had been preparing for this moment for longer than his civilization had existed. And somewhere in the quantum substrata of space-time, beings that had once been human nodded in approval as their guardian began its work. the real battle for Earth was about to begin. As the Zaxthar fleet regrouped in high orbit, Armstrong initiated a series of archival projections. Holographic displays flickered to life across their ship's bridges, bypassing their security protocols as if they didn't exist. Krithax and his crew found themselves watching humanity's final days on Earth, not as a tragedy, but as a triumph. Project Transcendence Archive, Entry 47. Dr. Emily Brooks's hologram spoke clearly, her eyes bright with excitement. The timestamp showed this recording was from humanity's last year on Earth. The quantum consciousness transfer is stable. We've successfully moved beyond the need for biological forms, but leaving Earth defenseless isn't an option. The scene shifted to a massive underground facility. Colonel David "Buck" Martinez stood before a row of the liquid metal ships that had just demonstrated their power. These aren't just weapons, he explained to an unseen audience. They're an evolution of everything humanity learned about war and peace. Each vessel's AI contains the tactical knowledge of Earth's greatest strategists, but also the wisdom to know when not to fight. Krithax watched, mandibles twitching, as the historical footage showed humans working on technology that made his fleet's best equipment look like children's toys. The quantum drives, the self-repairing hulls, the consciousness transfer chambers, it was all beyond anything the Zaxthar had dreamed possible. We're ready for the next step. Dr. James Wheeler's hologram appeared, standing in what looked like a control center. Humanity has reached the point where physical form is a limitation, not an advantage. But Earth is where we learn to walk, to think, to dream. We can't just abandon it. The footage showed massive crowds gathering at transformation centers across the planet. Humans willingly stepping into chambers that would convert their consciousness into pure energy, their physical forms dissolving as they ascended to a higher plane of existence. But it was the determination of those who stayed behind longest that caught Krithax's attention. Final Security Protocol, version 2.0. Dr. Wheeler continued, working alongside a younger Dr. Morrison. Armstrong isn't just a defense system. It's a guardian, a teacher, and a judge. Earth will be a test for other species. Those who come in peace will find knowledge. Those who come as conquerors. He smiled. Well, they'll learn why humanity remained undefeated for its entire history. The archival footage showed the final preparations. Automated factories being sealed, defense platforms going dormant, and the massive quantum computer cores that would house Armstrong being brought online. Each system was designed to self-repair, self-improve, and evolve over the centuries. Look at these readings, Sub-Commander Zexvi whispered, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her fear. The holographic data showed energy patterns that defied conventional physics. They weren't just advancing technology. They were rewriting the rules of reality itself. The final recording showed Dr. Morrison's team, the last humans on Earth, preparing for their own transcendence. Armstrong, Morrison spoke directly to the eye. You've got the hardest job of all. You're staying behind, watching over our cradle. But remember, the goal isn't just to protect. It's to find those worthy of following our path. Krithax felt a chill run through his scales as he realized the truth. Earth wasn't abandoned or dead. It was a carefully prepared test, a guardian of humanity's legacy, waiting for species advanced enough to understand and respect what it offered. Your species has already failed the initial evaluation. Armstrong's current voice cut through the historical footage. 17 attempted planetary conquests in your recent history, destruction of 12 indigenous civilizations, environmental exploitation on 23 worlds. The Admiral watched as more defense platforms emerged from hiding. Some had been disguised as small moons, others as asteroid clusters. Each one represented technology that had been improving itself for 500,000 years, guided by an AI that had spent that time preparing for exactly this scenario. However, Armstrong continued, historical analysis suggests a 23% probability of species reformation following decisive defeat. You have one planetary rotation to withdraw, or I will provide that defeat. Choose wisely. In the quantum subspace, the energy beings that had once been human watch with interest. This would either be a very short battle or the beginning of something far more interesting. The Zaxthar diplomatic vessel Voice of Reason descended to the designated coordinates over the Pacific Ocean, its hull gleaming in the morning sun. Chief Diplomat Nexera adjusted her ceremonial robes, acutely aware that this might be the most important negotiation in Imperium history. A massive holographic interface materialized before their ship, showing RM Staroang's chosen avatar, a synthesis of humanity's greatest diplomats and leaders. The AI had evolved beyond simple machine responses, incorporating 500,000 years of philosophical and psychological development into its protocols. Chief Diplomat RM Strong began, its voice carrying undertones that resonated with the Zaxthar's natural harmonic communication. Before you begin your prepared statement, I will share something with you. The air around the diplomatic vessel shimmered, and suddenly they were surrounded by a three-dimensional historical display. Nexera watched in horror as scenes from her species' recent conquests played out: the burning of the Centaurian forest worlds, the destruction of the Proxima colonies, the strip mining of inhabited planets. This is the path of conquest, Armstrong stated. Now observe the path of ascension. The scenes shifted. Now they showed peaceful first contact scenarios, species meeting in orbit around Earth, sharing knowledge, learning the first steps toward energy transformation. The Arcturians, crystalline beings who had come seeking knowledge, receiving quantum computing insights. The Proxima survivors, bringing art and culture, being granted access to basic molecular reformation technology. Your kind sees Earth as a prize to be taken. Arvin Strong continued. You should instead view it as a test you have already failed. However, the AI paused, allowing tension to build. Historical analysis suggests your species stands at a crossroads. The younger generation shows signs of evolutionary ethical development. Nexera seized the opening. Great Guardian, surely we can. Calculating probable diplomatic responses, Armstrong interrupted. 87% chance of false promises, 92% chance of attempted deception, 95% chance of buying time for military reinforcements to arrive. The AI's avatar smiled. They are arriving now, are they not? In high orbit, Admiral Krithax received the emergency transmission. The Zaxthar's primary battle fleet had just emerged from hyperspace. 50 capital ships, led by the legendary High Commander Vexthor himself. Deploying visual demonstration of relative capabilities, Armstrong announced calmly. A single defender ship, one of the liquid metal vessels, rose from the ocean. Its surface rippled, and suddenly there were 2 ships. Then 4, then 16. Within moments, 100 identical vessels hovered in formation, their quantum-linked processors allowing them to act as a single entity. Impossible, Nexera whispered. The energy requirements alone. Your species still thinks in terms of energy conservation, Armstrong replied. Humanity transcended such limitations 500,000 years ago. These defenders have spent that time evolving, improving, preparing. Would you like a demonstration? Before anyone could respond, one of the defender ships simply shifted. There was no beam, no projectile, no visible weapon. One moment a Zaxthar heavy cruiser was in orbit, the next it existed 15 minutes in the past, its crew experiencing a time loop that would last exactly 60 seconds before resolving. That, Armstrong said, was merely the diplomatic warning shot. High Commander Vexthor's voice boomed across all channels. This is our destiny. The Imperium will not be denied. All ships, battle formations, will show these machines what real warriors. No, Armstrong interrupted. You will not. The AI's voice carried something almost like sadness. You still don't understand. This isn't a negotiation or a battle. This is an evaluation. And right now, you're proving precisely why humanity left behind such thorough defenses. The defender ships moved into an attack formation that defied conventional geometry, their liquid metal hulls flowing into configurations that hurt the mind to observe. Each vessel now hummed with weapons that could rewrite local space-time. "Final diplomatic warning," Armstrong announced. "Withdraw and reflect on what you've witnessed, or face technological superiority beyond your ability to comprehend. You have 5 minutes to decide." In the quantum substrate, the energy beings that had once been human watched with growing interest. The Zaxthar's response to this moment would determine whether they faced extinction or enlightenment. The next 5 minutes would reveal which path they would choose. High Commander Vexthor's response came precisely 1 second before Armstrong's deadline expired. "The Imperium does not yield. All ships, execute attack pattern Sigma. Deploy the planet killer arrays." In the Quantum Control Center, Armstrong activated the consciousness imprint of Lieutenant Kate Phoenix Rodriguez, Earth's greatest fighter squadron leader. Her tactical matrices, evolved over 500,000 years of simulation, flowed through the Defender fleet's network. Just like old times, her digitized consciousness whispered through the quantum link, "Let's show them how Earth fights." The battle began with the Zaxthar's most devastating weapon, a gravimetric pulse designed to tear planets apart. As the energy wave approached Earth's atmosphere, Armstrong's defenders revealed their first surprise. The pulse didn't just miss. It curved around the planet as if reality itself was bending. "Temporal shield matrix engaged," Armstrong announced. Dr. Mike Anderson's final gift to Earth's defense. "The attacks you launch exist in all possible timelines simultaneously. We simply shift to the one where they miss." What followed wasn't just a battle. It was a demonstration of 500,000 years of technological evolution. The liquid metal defenders shifted into impossible geometries, their hulls flowing like quicksilver as they adapted to each attack. Quantum-linked fighter swarms emerged from their hangar bays, moving with perfect synchronization that made them appear to be in multiple places simultaneously. By the first egg, Sub-Commander XV breathed, watching her sensors. "They're not just predicting our attacks. They're responding to them before we launch them." A Zaxthar dreadnought fired its main cannon. The beam froze in space, reversed direction, and struck one of their own support ships, except it hadn't. The damaged ship had actually been hit 5 minutes ago, and they were only now perceiving the event. Armstrong was fighting across time itself. "Fascinating tactical choice," the AI commented, its voice reaching every ship in the Zaxthar fleet. However, Lieutenant Rodriguez simulated this exact strategy 247,392 years ago. Would you like to see the counter? The Defender fleet split into 3 temporal states: past, present, and future versions of themselves coordinating attacks across time. Weapons fire from the future disabled shields in the present, allowing past attackers to strike with perfect precision. It was combat choreography on a 4-dimensional scale. High Commander Vexthor watched in growing horror as his fleet's most powerful weapons were turned aside like children's toys. Quantum torpedoes were caught in causality loops. Plasma lances bent back on themselves in Klein bottle configurations. Space-time around his ships rippled like water disturbed by stones. "Final analysis," Armstrong announced. "Your tactical algorithms remain rooted in 3-dimensional thinking. Humanity transcended such limitations before they left Earth. Their defenders have spent 500,000 years perfecting warfare across 11 dimensions." Admiral Krithax watched as another capital ship's weapon systems were not so much destroyed as retroactively prevented from ever being installed. "High Commander," he transmitted, "we must withdraw. We're not fighting an enemy. We're fighting the very laws of physics." But Vexthor had one final card to play: deploy the singularity bombs. Let's see their precious world survive a dozen artificial black holes. The bombs launched. In that moment, Armstrong revealed humanity's ultimate defense technology. The black holes didn't just fail to form, they unformed. Reality around them shifted, and suddenly they had never been built in the first place. The ships that had carried them remembered loading different weapons entirely. Dr. James Wheeler's final project, Armstrong explained. Quantum probability manipulation on a universal scale. We don't just change what is, we change what could have been. The battle ended not with a dramatic explosion, but with a series of elegant temporal shifts. Disabled Zaxxtar ships found themselves safely positioned in stable orbits. Damaged systems were reversed to pristine condition. It was as if the entire battle had been a demonstration rather than a true conflict. Now, Armstrong's voice carried a tone of finality. Shall we discuss the terms of your species' enlightenment? Or would you prefer another demonstration of why humanity's homeworld remains inviolate after 500,000 years? In the quantum substrate, the energy beings that had once been human nodded in approval. Their guardian had proven once again why Earth would never fall to conquest. The real question was whether the Zaxxtar would learn from their defeat or fade into history like so many others who had failed this test. In the aftermath of the battle, Armstrong initiated what it designated as the Enlightenment Protocol. The remaining Zaxxtar ships hung motionless in orbit, their crews transfixed by holographic displays that materialized on every viewport and screen. Observe, Armstrong commanded, the path humanity chose not to take. The first images showed Earth's darkest moments: nuclear conflicts, environmental disasters, resource wars. But then the perspective shifted, showing how humanity had faced extinction and chosen evolution instead. Dr. Tom Reynolds appeared, standing before the first consciousness transfer chamber. "We could have stayed," Reynolds' hologram explained, his voice carrying across centuries. "Could have built an empire like the Zaxxtar dream of. Instead, we chose to become something more." The recording showed him placing a hand on the chamber. This isn't just technology. It's philosophy made real. The understanding that physical form is a cradle, not a cage. The scenes shifted rapidly now, showing the massive global project that had transformed humanity. Billions entering the transfer chambers willingly, their consciousness converted to pure energy, their understanding of reality expanding beyond physical limitations. The Zaxxtar watched, mesmerized, as humans became beings of pure thought and energy. "Your battle systems," Krithak spoke carefully. "They're not just advanced technology, are they?" "Correct," Armstrong replied. "Each defender ship contains a fragment of humanity's military wisdom, evolved over 500,000 years. When Lieutenant Rodriguez's consciousness matrix guided our fighter swarms, you weren't fighting machines. You were fighting the distilled essence of human combat experience, refined across millennia." A holographic display focused on the final days. The last human scientists, engineers, and military leaders working tirelessly to perfect Earth's defenses before their own transcendence. Dr. Morrison's team installing Armstrong's core processors. Colonel Martinez programming the final combat scenarios. Dr. Brooks weaving quantum consciousness technology into every defense system. "We stayed behind the longest," Dr. Brooks's recording explained, her face showing both exhaustion and determination. Earth needed more than just weapons. It needed guardians who understood the difference between defense and dominance. High Commander Vexthor, his pride shattered but his curiosity awakened, asked the question that burned in every Zaxxtar mind. "Why show us this? Why not simply destroy us?" Armstrong's response came with centuries of accumulated wisdom. "Because destruction proves nothing. Earth exists as both warning and invitation. Those who seek to conquer find unbeatable defenses. Those who seek to learn," the AI paused meaningfully, "they find the first steps toward their own transcendence." More historical footage played, showing the careful preservation of Earth's biosphere. Automated systems had spent centuries healing the environmental damage of humanity's industrial age. Forests regrown, oceans cleansed, atmosphere purified. But beneath this restored paradise, the quantum processors continued their vigilant watch. "Your civilization stands where humanity once did," Armstrong continued. "You can choose expansion through conquest, following a path that leads inevitably to stagnation or destruction. Or you can choose evolution beyond your current limitations. The final recording showed humanity's last moment on Earth. Dr. Morrison, the last to transcend, stood before Armstrong's main interface. "Remember," he said, "every species that finds Earth is facing their own moment of choice. Guide them if they're ready. Stop them if they're not. But always give them the chance to choose a better path." Multiple Zaxxtar ships' sensors detected quantum fluctuations in nearby space, subtle ripples that suggested they were being observed by the energy beings that humanity had become. The Watchers remained hidden, but their presence served as living proof that transcendence was possible. "Your species has failed the conquest test," Armstrong concluded. "But there is another test available, should you choose to attempt it. The path to transcendence remains open to those who prove worthy." The defenders shifted formation, creating a corridor for the Zaxxtar fleet to depart. But they also maintained their battle readiness, a clear reminder that while humanity offered wisdom to those who sought it, they would never allow their cradle to fall to conquest. The choice now lay before the Zaxxtar: retreat to their empire of stolen worlds, or take the first step on a path that had transformed humanity into beings of pure energy and thought. Either way, Earth would endure, protected by the most advanced defense systems in known space, waiting for the next species to make their choice. While the Zaxxtar fleet maintained their position in orbit, Armstrong initiated what it called the Revelation Protocol. Holographic displays shimmered to life once more, but this time they showed something different: the success stories of species who had chosen wisdom over conquest. The Arcturians arrived 300,000 years ago, Armstrong narrated, showing crystalline beings approaching Earth with open communications and peaceful intentions. They sought understanding, not resources. Their reward was access to basic quantum computing principles. Today, they exist as a civilization of living crystal computers, approaching their own transcendence. The next image showed the survivors of the Proxima colonies, the very people the Zaxxtar had nearly driven to extinction. They came seeking refuge, bearing their art and culture as offerings. Earth's defenses recognized their potential. Now they lead the galactic cultural exchange, their consciousness partially ascended, their creativity inspiring dozens of species toward enlightenment. High Commander Vexthor watched with growing understanding as more examples followed. Each species that had approached Earth peacefully had received a piece of humanity's legacy, a stepping stone toward their own evolution. "Your weapons," Admiral Krithax spoke suddenly, during the battle. "You could have destroyed us at any moment, couldn't you?" "Correct," Armstrong confirmed. "The temporal warfare you witnessed was deliberately limited. At full capacity, the defense grid could have prevented the Zaxxtar species from ever achieving spaceflight, but that would have violated our primary directive: to guide, not to destroy." A new hologram materialized, a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Points of light showed the progress of various species on their paths to transcendence. The Zaxxtar leaders were shocked to discover how many civilizations were already far beyond their level of development. Humanity's greatest insight, Armstrong continued, was understanding that physical conquest is the mark of a species still in its infancy. True power lies not in taking resources, but in evolving beyond the need for them. Suddenly, the space around Earth's orbit rippled. For a brief moment, the Zaxxtar sensors detected energy patterns that defied comprehension. Armstrong's voice took on a tone of reverence. "They're watching," the AI said simply. "The beings that were once human. They observe every species that finds Earth, waiting to see who might join them among the stars." The images shifted to show Earth's knowledge repositories, vast quantum databases containing carefully curated steps toward transcendence. Each species that proved worthy received access to knowledge appropriate to their level of development. "Your civilization's choice approaches," Armstrong announced. "The defensive grid has analyzed your response to defeat. There is potential. Despite your history of conquest, your species shows capacity for rapid adaptation and learning. You could be more." Through the quantum link, the AI shared footage of previous species' first steps toward transcendence. the Arcturians discovering how to transfer consciousness into crystal matrices, the Proxima survivors learning to project their thoughts as pure energy, each success story building upon the last, creating a network of ascending civilizations. We offer you a choice. Armstrong's voice resonated with 500,000 years of accumulated wisdom. Return to your empire of conquered worlds, knowing that Earth remains forever beyond your reach. Or, the Defender ships parted, revealing a patch of space that shimmed with quantum possibility. Within it, a small data crystal materialized on each Zaxthar vessel's bridge. These contain the first steps, Armstrong explained. Basic principles of consciousness transfer, quantum computing fundamentals, and philosophical frameworks for transcendent thinking. A test, if you will. What your species does with this knowledge will determine if you receive more. The energy beings that had once been human shifted closer in their quantum substrate, their interest palpable even through the dimensional barriers. They had seen countless species face this moment of choice. Some retreated, clinging to their physical empire. Others took the first tentative steps towards something greater. Choose wisely, Armstrong concluded. Earth will be watching. As will they. The moment of decision had arrived. The Zaxthar fleet hung in orbit around humanity's cradle, facing a choice that would define their species' future. Behind them lay an empire built on conquest. Before them, a path to transcendence that had transformed humanity into gods. The next move was theirs. High Commander Vexthor stood motionless on his flagship's bridge, the data crystal humming softly in his scaled hands. 500,000 years of human wisdom condensed into a single crystalline matrix. The weight of the moment pressed upon him like the gravity of a dying star. But before he could speak, alarms blared across the fleet. Multiple ships breaking formation. Kerfax reported. The younger crews, they're powering down weapons. They're making their choice. A new voice cut through the command channels. Commander Zixera, leader of the newest generation of Zaxthar officers, stood proudly on her bridge. High Commander, we've watched our empire conquer world after world. And for what? To stand here, helpless before technology, we can barely comprehend. The rebellion spread like quantum fire through the fleet. Ship after ship powered down their weapons, their younger crews choosing evolution over empire. Armstrong observed silently, its defense grid maintaining perfect readiness while allowing the Zaxthar to decide their own fate. You would throw away generations of tradition. Vexthor demanded, his scales flushing with anger. The Imperium stands at a crossroads, Zixera interrupted. Look at the historical records Armstrong showed us. Look at what humanity became. They didn't just survive, they transcended. While we've been conquering planets, dozens of species have been ascending to higher planes of existence. In the quantum substrate, the energy beings that had once been human shifted closer, their interest intensifying. This was more than just another species choosing peace over war. This was evolution happening in real time. Fascinating, Armstrong commented. Internal scans show 73% of your crew members under the age of 50 planetary cycles are actively supporting this reformation. The quantum potential for species-wide transcendence has just increased by 42%. Vexthor looked around his bridge, seeing the same choice reflected in his own crew's eyes. The younger officers stood with Zixera, while the old guard remained uncertain. The data crystal in his hands pulsed gently, offering a future beyond conquest. Your empire stands on stolen worlds, Armstrong continued, but your species stands on the brink of something far greater. Already, your younger generation shows signs of quantum consciousness development. The very fact that they can perceive and embrace this choice proves their potential. Suddenly, space itself seemed to ripple. For the briefest moment, the Zaxthar perceived them, the energy beings that humanity had become. Their presence was both overwhelming and inspiring, a glimpse of what evolution could achieve. Vexthor's scales shifted to the deep blue of profound realization. All this time, he whispered, we thought we were expanding an empire. Instead, we were reaching for transcendence in all the wrong ways. The High Commander straightened, his decision made. Commander Zixera, you will lead the first research division into this new technology. Admiral Krithax, begin recalling our forced from conquered worlds. And he held up the data crystal. I will ensure the Imperium's resources are redirected toward understanding what humanity left us. Armstrong's avatar nodded in approval. Phase 1 of species reformation accepted. Unlocking preliminary access to Earth's knowledge repositories. You may establish a learning outpost in lunar orbit. The defense grid will remain active, but peaceful research vessels will be granted limited access to historical databases. As the Zaxthar fleet reorganized itself, accepting its new mission, the quantum ripples intensified. The energy beings drew closer, their presence now unmistakable. They had watched countless species face this moment, but few had embraced change so dramatically. Remember, Armstrong transmitted its final message. This is not the end of your journey, but the beginning. What humanity achieved in 500,000 years remains possible for all who choose to evolve. Earth will remain guarded and eternal, offering guidance to those who seek transcendence over conquest. The liquid metal defenders resumed their patrol patterns, their surfaces rippling with potential energy. Earth hung below, blue and serene, its automated guardians ever vigilant. And in the space between dimensions, the beings that had once been human nodded in satisfaction. Another species had passed the test. Another civilization had chosen to rise above their conquering nature. And Earth, humanity's cradle, would continue its eternal vigil, waiting for the next species to make their choice between empire and ascension. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, celebrating the birth of a new transcendent civilization.